As a bad delay, folks. I apologize. YouTube is way behind the eight ball tonight. I don't know. All right, folks. So tonight I've got Catherine Dreher on with me, and she's running for Missouri Senate out of District 10, which I will bring her on momentarily. Glad to see Voodoo Queen's already in here, getting ready to enjoy the stream. So anyway, let's start recording. Let's get the live stream's going. I'm half asleep. I apologize. Let me start recording, and we'll get this show on the road. And I think this one's going to be another fun interview, if I do say so myself. So let me get the recording started, and then we'll rock and roll, shall we? All right, folks, and we're back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. And my camera's already doing stupid stuff that I got to try to get it lost its focus. Now I got this blurry, this camera sometimes. I want to shoot it. Anyway, tonight I am joined by Catherine Dreher. She is running for Missouri State Senate out of District 10. But before we get to that, so after this interview is over with Catherine, please stick around because come on, Cameron, good Lord. I have something that I want to discuss, and I want to give my feelings on the two people in District 3 running for U.S. Congress against Blaine Luetkemeyer that I want to I'm going to speak my mind tonight, okay? And I know that I've alluded to some of the things that have been said or whatever. Come on, camera. Are you freaking kidding me? But I've alluded to a couple of things. Some other things have happened that have ticked me off to no end that have to do with one of the gentlemen that I interviewed. So stick around after Mrs. Dreher and I are done. Stick around. I'll keep recording because I am going to speak my mind. And, this really goes out to the people in District 3. So you all are aware of the actions of one of these candidates. But I'm trying to be radio friendly here. They ticked me off. And so I've got some things to say. All right. But again, we're joined by Mrs. Dreher here. She is running out of District 10 for Missouri State Senate. Mrs. Dreher, how are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. So I guess to start off, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, and then I know the live stream viewers are going to they're going to have some questions for you. I'm going to have some questions for you. And then we'll just go from there. But give us some of your background and maybe kind of go into why you decided to run for Missouri Senate.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my name is Catherine. You don't need to call me Miss Dreher, please. And yes, I live in unincorporated Lincoln County. We've been here for almost 5 years. Prior to that, we lived in St. Charles County for 12 years. I am a homeschool mom. I have one daughter in college, a son who hopefully will be in college next year, and one going into 7th grade. I've homeschooled all of them, I think, since the day they were born. So I've spent a lot of time with that. My background, like my master's degree, is in professional communication. So I taught marketing and advertising for about 10 years. And I did a lot of that from home, so I was still able to homeschool. I really got involved in politics around 2011 when Ron Paul was campaigning for president. I will, with a little bit of shame, say that I did phone bank for John McCain in 2008, and then my eyes were opened by Ron Paul. and I was part of what they called the Raucous Caucus in St. Charles County, where the police came in and the helicopters flew over, and we had to disband the caucus, have a new caucus, and we did win for Ron Paul. So I went on to be a state delegate for Ron Paul at the state convention in 2012. But that's really what started kind of my foray into politics, was seeing just a lot of the corruption, especially at the local level. And being kind of new to it, I'm like, well, I'm a Republican and Ron Paul's a Republican. Why do all these Republicans hate me so much? But I was part of a small group that we formed in St. Charles County called the St. Charles County Liberty Project. We weren't affiliated with any party, and we focused largely on issues. So we were the group that I would say was pretty much responsible for getting rid of red light cameras in St. Charles County. We held a town forum, had a county council member put it on the ballot. We educated voters, and we got rid of red light cameras in St. Charles County. We also tackled some other initiatives, like when they wanted to try to remove our county sheriff as being an elected sheriff and turned it into a chief of police that would be appointed by the executive branch of the county government. We lost that, but we put up a good fight. So yeah, most of what I've done has been at the local level. When I moved out to Lincoln County, I, right away, like, okay, what can I get involved in? And I was on staff for Mike Wood's campaign for prosecuting attorney. If any of you have watched the thing about Pam and know the whole Pam Hupp story, excuse me, Mike Wood was the prosecuting attorney who ran against Leah Askey. So I worked within the Republican Party for a number of years, actually, and it's just been within the past year and a half that I switched parties to the Libertarian Party, and I can get into that later if you want as to why I did that. But that's a little bit, I guess, of my background. We live out in the country. Love being in the country. That was our whole reason for moving, was we just wanted more space, wanted to get away from our neighbors a little bit more. Not that we didn't love our neighbors, but just wanted to have that space. So we love being in Lincoln County. And I decided to run because I was asked, really. I've run for office a couple of times, and the only times I've ever run was because I was asked. I ran for Cottleville Fire Protection District board member against the Fire Protection District Union because I was asked on the last day to file. And again, the state party was looking for somebody a libertarian who would run in this particular race because there was no duopoly. At the time, there were 6 Republicans signed up. It's a brand new district. It's the way the district is formed. It's brand new, essentially. And there were 6 Republicans who had signed up, no Democrat. And so I was approached by the state party, and I said, sure, I'll put my hat in the race. And I talked to my husband because he knows me, and I know myself that I can't be a placeholder, that if I'm going to put my name down, I'm going to run a campaign, and I'm going to do what I can to win. Aside from just being asked, I feel like the Libertarian Party really needs to become a viable third-party option, and I feel like the time is right in America where people are wanting a third party. And I think it's time for the Libertarian Party to step up and say, hey, we're that third party option. So,
absolutely. So
I hope I answered all of that.
Yes, you did. Now, I've already...
in one long run-off sentence.
Hey, we're a lot alike because sometimes I just ramble, and sometimes it goes some... See, yours was solid. Sometimes I go somewhere solid, and sometimes I lose track of what the heck I was saying, and I'm like... Anyway, let's try to get back to the subject. But we already have a question.
Okay.
One of the viewers wants to know where you stand with the Second Amendment.
Where do I stand with the Second Amendment?
Yeah.
the Republicans will let you have your guns. I'll let you have your bumper stocks too. That's where I stand. I'm just
Okay. I mean, yeah, the whole bump stock ban was.
your bump stock. Yeah.
Yeah. That was okay. So.
Did I say bumper stock? I
Yeah,
meant
you
bump
did.
stock. So
No, it's
yeah.
it's
Sometimes
fine.
I do that. You'll have to excuse me. But where I stand on Second Amendment, you have the right to defend yourself. I don't care if you do it with a rock, a hammer, or AR-15.
Okay. Fair enough. And the second part of this question is, where would you draw the line as to what should the public not be allowed to own as far as firearms? Like if let's say you wanted to say, well, you should be able to own up to this. Do you have a line where you're like, nobody should own this type of firearm? Where would you? Okay, you don't have a line on that.
I have no line. No, absolutely no line, because I don't. The issue is not guns. It really isn't. I think we need to start dealing more with the mental health crisis that we have amongst our, some of the younger generations, and just in general. Guns don't just automatically go off killing people. So I don't draw a line.
They don't? Because that's what I thought they did. I thought they just.
Right?
I mean, that's the way they make it sound. They make it sound like they just get a mind of their own and bam, 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 bam.
Right.
And they
finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot, right?
Yeah, and they always go to the gun-free zones too. Isn't that weird? Like the guns even know where they're not supposed to be, and then they go rogue. It's kind of weird that happens.
Yeah, they're just sitting ducks.
Yeah. No, okay. Because now that we're on this topic, because we, there are people saying, "Listen, we have a mental health issue in this country." But here's my problem. Here's my problem that a lot of the people, not all of them, but a lot of the people that draw attention to this topic want the government to step in and create departments of mental health, or I've even heard basic universal mental health care coverage. And I'm thinking, after the Affordable Care Act, you want these people in charge of mental health care coverage? I mean, I couldn't think of a worse organization. But what are your thoughts on this as far as, okay, I mean, we could allow the free market to have more say in this. I mean, that's the basic answer. But what would you look at as far as a resolution or to help solve the problem of the mental health crisis that we seem to have with a lot of the youth? What are some things you look at that you say maybe we could try this to see if it works? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, unfortunately, if you already have a shooter at hand, that's probably not the time to be figuring out what's going on mental health wise.
Right.
But no, as far as any sort of universal mental health system, I'm opposed to any sort of universal health care at all. I lived in England for a while. I have actually experienced universal, national health care system. It is horrible. What I would rather see is a reallocation of resources away from people may not like to hear this, but away from police officers responding to what might be a mental health crisis. From what I understand, recently in Troy police officers showed up at a house with guns drawn, and first of all, they weren't even at the right house. But then when they were at the right house, it turned out it was just I'm not sure if it was the fiance or the wife had called in for a mental health check because her husband was depressed and was talking about suicide. So you don't deal with that by sending in armed police officers. You deal with that by sending in somebody who is trained in the mental health profession, and you reallocate resources to that. So I'm not suggesting we start a whole new mental health national universal mental health. I'm just saying reallocate the resources that are being used, that could be used in better ways.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, because, I give this example. We have some police officers here in Owensville, and a lot of them have the understanding that they are not to go into a situation to escalate it. They are there to de-escalate. And if you have someone who is depressed and they're talking about suicide, and then you send armed people in with their guns drawn, I mean, how's that gonna how is that going to help them? How is that going to help come to a peaceful solution to the problem where this person's like, okay, I need to get help, if
Right.
officers have their gun pulled entering into whoever's house? That to me, that's the most
Right.
illogical thing you could do. Like, oh,
Well,
this guy wants to
exactly.
kill himself, so we're all going to go in there with our pistols drawn because that's going to make him feel a whole lot better about his life.
Yes, and I've seen that. I've seen stories like that have happened in St. Louis. So, I'm not just trying to pick out Troy, but that's the more recent event. But I see that happening a lot. And that's the wrong resource to have in that situation.
Yeah, that I mean, and here's here's the issue that I see, because of course the media and the political parties, we're at the extreme on the issue. A lot of them are
Mm-hmm.
defund the police, or it's defend the police, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything else is off the board. But it's like, can we at least have a compromise here to say that they're not bad enough to defund them, but they're also
Right.
not good enough to say, oh, they had no choice, they had to do it. That's the problem. The media is focused on the polar opposites, the extreme positions on the problem, and nobody's really out there saying, well, what about right here in the middle where we could do X and Y, and instead of sending a police officer in for someone who's under mental duress and they may be suicidal, that you don't send in a police officer. We have somebody else, like you said. I don't have a problem reallocating money from law enforcement to something else, as long as the city or the county or the state doesn't go, oh, we're just going to up your taxes a little bit so we can pay for this.
Right.
Why don't you guys cut some spending, or again redirect that in a positive direction, and so that way you can find a good solution to the problem. So,
Right.
wow, okay, what are your feelings on the Second Amendment Preservation Act here in Missouri? Because that kind of goes hand in hand with the first question we had. What are your thoughts on SAFA here in Missouri?
Oh, yeah. Have always been behind SAFA. It protects us as a state, as far as if the federal government wanted to try to come in and take our firearms, our local officials could be fined for being involved in that. So I feel like it's probably one of the greatest protections we can have against the federal government coming in and trying to disarm us. And it also shows our state sovereignty. I think we forget so much about the 10th Amendment. We have state sovereignty, and we should be able to say, hey, no, we want to keep our guns, and you're not going to come in and take them. And if you try to do so and you try to get our agents involved, well, they're going to be in trouble. So
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because even sometimes people who run for state office tend to forget, they tend to forget about the whole sovereignty issue where, and the 10th Amendment, where a lot of them want to come up with a bill. And it's like, well, sure, a bill's fine if it's got teeth and somebody gets in trouble for trying to enforce something that's unconstitutional. That's fine, but sometimes we
Right.
can just choose to ignore the feds. I mean, honestly, sometimes it's as simple as that. You just say, we're not going to do that. I mean, somebody posted a video on Twitter earlier today. Now, it looked like an older video, but it was county sheriff, and he sounded like it was from a southern state from his accent, and he was saying
Sure.
that he was urging the county commission to join the counties around them, who said that they would absolutely not help the feds, basically creating like Second Amendment sanctuary areas. And he
Right.
said, he goes, and if you choose not to join them, he goes, just be aware, I will not ever enforce unconstitutional gun laws. He said, even if you don't become a sanctuary county, he's like, I'm still not doing it either. Whatever your decision is, I'm not doing
Right.
it. And it brings to mind what you're talking about is having and not an elected but an appointed sheriff, like a chief of police, and it's like,
Right.
if we just had sheriffs that knew the Constitution, seeing how as they're the highest ranking law enforcement in your state, if we understood the importance of a constitutional sheriff, then, a lot of things. The feds could come in and the sheriff can go, all right, well, now you got to turn around and go back home because we
Yes.
don't want you here.
Absolutely. And a lot of people did not understand that, unfortunately. We worked hard in St. Charles County to help them understand that. And it passed by a slim margin, but unfortunately it did pass. And well, now St. Charles County can deal with that. I'm out here in Lincoln County.
There you go.
Maybe they want to revisit it.
Problem solved. Got out of Dodge. Okay. Here's another big one. Your thoughts on Roe v. Wade as the Supreme Court said it's a state issue. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree that it is a state issue. I've always believed that. That was something Ron Paul often talked about, that if Roe v. Wade could be overturned, it would go back to the state. I am pro-life. I do believe one of the very limited functions of government is the protection of life. I believe it's a very slippery slope if we begin to determine whether the value of life based on its size, its location, its cognitive ability, its dependency on another human being. So I think the Supreme Court got that right. And murder is handled by the states. And so, again, I view that as a life. It is not part of the mother. It's a separate life, has its own DNA. And abortion is murdering it, and that should be handled by the states.
Yeah, I've had people come to me and say, well, they don't agree with the Supreme Court, but they also kind of fell into that pit trap of, oh, well, they made it illegal. And no, they did not.
No, they didn't.
They made it a state's right. But I told them, I said, part of the problem, the reason people that are pro-life get super upset is when you see states like New York or California that try to say, right, hey, it's okay, even after, a few minutes after the baby is born, you can still terminate it. I said, now how sick is that? And they wonder why pro-lifers get so wound up on this topic, because it seems like some states that allow abortion, they keep extending out the timeline when you can abort that baby. That you can, right, it might be 8 weeks at first, then it's 16, then it's 24, and then it's right up to the time that the baby's full term, and you're like, and some of them are like, okay, well, it's fine. No, how is that fine? If you pull that baby out, it's going to cry, because now it needs oxygen to breathe. How can you be okay with saying, yeah, that's fine? I literally saw a video here a few years ago, and now this guy was being facetious. He didn't feel this way. He was asking people, he's like, so what do you think about, abortion up to like 2 months old? There were literally people like, okay, yeah, maybe I can see that in some cases. Like, you can see that in some cases? What the hell kind of answer is that? Kind of weird. Yeah. What did you eat this morning for breakfast that made you so weird?
Right.
Okay, another topic.
And
go ahead. No, if you got a thought.
I was going to just say, I did work for a crisis pregnancy center. I've been on the front line of this. I've answered the phone calls of women in a crisis pregnancy. I've sat with them. So this isn't just something that I just have a position and an opinion on, but I have seen firsthand the women that have come in and have maybe already had one abortion, and the post-traumatic stress it is put on them. It is very real. Sometimes it doesn't hit until maybe 10 years later. But that, again, is something that pro-abortionists don't want to talk about. But it is very real. And so, yeah, but being pro-life, and, I've adopted a child, it extends beyond that. Let's make adoption cheaper. There's they want to say, oh, all pro-lifers care about is the unborn child. Well, no, like I said, I've sat with those women and cried with those women. So, for me, it extends beyond. It extends both to the mother and the child in terms of what is the best route.
Yeah, okay. So because that is one thing that I brought up to people when the trigger law went into effect, and I said we as pro-life people now have to extend our efforts into getting the state or this bureaucracy out of adoption because I think Susie Pollock was on with me, and she said she knew somebody $47,000 to adopt a kid.
Hmm.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
Here you're trying to do the right thing. Maybe someone's pregnant and having a baby and they don't want to take care of it or maybe they just
Sure.
can't. And you have someone willing to give that child a good life and be a good parent. And you're going to say, well, yeah, that's great and all, but you're going to have to pay $30,000-$40,000 in order to do that. I mean, it seems hypocritical if you're a pro-lifer
Hmm.
and then you think that's okay that an adoption costs that much, and because we always talk about the left, excuse me, virtue signaling, but there are some pro-life people and there are people on the right that virtue signal, and it's nice to hear that you actually worked in a crisis center and that you're not just virtue signaling. Oh yeah, I care about the unborn and I care about little babies, but you've been on the front line, so you have a better understanding. So, next question is, what are your thoughts on getting rid of, because this is a big topic on this show, the personal property tax? What do you think about getting rid of the personal property tax?
I would love to get rid of the personal property tax, John. To me, the personal property tax, it harkens back to the feudal system when, the kings allowed you to use their land if you paid them a certain amount of money. It's archaic. And I think if it's my property, it's my property. Do not use my property as your source of revenue. or my car, my tangible property, whether it's my real estate or my tangible property. It is not yours to tax. It is not yours to profit off of. I'm talking yours being the government.
Yeah, right. No, I get you. And
Right.
I like that analogy, the feudal system. I've never heard it worded quite like that. A lot of people say, this is also true. You're basically renting your property from the government because you got to pay them their extortion fee at the end of the year. So you're basically renting your house and your cars and motorcycles. And here's the thing. I keep harping on this because I live in a more rural area, and you do too.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to hear,
Right.
we hear state reps talking all the time about, or just politicians in general, being pro-farmer. We're pro-family
Right.
farm. Okay, then why won't you get rid of a burdensome tax that they have to pay at the end of the year? The personal property tax is an insult
Exactly.
to family farms. Why aren't you doing this and eliminating this big burden? Every head of livestock, all
Right.
their equipment, their buildings.
Yes.
Why
Oh
would
my
you not
goodness.
eliminate that?
I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, go
yeah,
ahead.
we have 12 and a half acres. Most of that is wooded. But in order to mow what we do own, we have a small tractor. Not a huge tractor, a decent-sized tractor. We pay more personal property tax on that tractor than we do on my cars. So I think about these farmers that own, these combines and these, balers, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, what are they having to pay for that?
Now, what's interesting, and I didn't know this until it's been a month or so ago, I covered this, that I was unaware up until, like I said, very recently, that your land is graded. So the better like especially if you have fields that are used to produce crops, the better the
Right.
field, the more that you pay per acreage. So if you got prime land,
Yeah.
that you pay more. Now, if you got rutted up, nasty, really hilly stuff, well, then you won't pay as much. But if you have primo cropland, you can plant acres of corn or soybeans on. You're paying. So, government, in fact, says, well, it's almost sort of like, well, your land's a little better than this guy, and that's not quite fair. So you're going to have to pay. How
Right.
how do we get here? Who made that distinction? And again, it's arbitrary, really. This is all
It is.
arbitrary. It's just like, I try to tell people all the time when they're going to put up a fence in their yard, or they're going to do something in their house, and they're like, oh, I got to go get my building permit. And I said, you realize the only reason that building permit is there is so they know you did some beautification to your home, and they know that they can tax you more the next year because your property is going to be worth more. It's going to be a higher valuation. They don't care about the safety. They care because you added a room addition on your house. That means your house is worth more. That means next year you're going to pay more in your taxes. If it wasn't for the money, they wouldn't care if you built a leaning tower of Pisa in your yard. It's about the dollars.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and my husband and I are like, if we can do it ourselves, we're going to do it ourselves. I was on the St. Charles County Board of Zoning Adjustment for about 4 years.
Ooh.
Yeah. You want to talk about government overreach? I always and I got my wrist slapped a lot by the bureaucrats because I would just look at them and I would ask, so let's say they want, a 5-foot variance because they want to put their deck here as opposed to here, right? And the bureaucrats are saying, well, no, they could put it over here. And I'm like, but they don't want it there. They want it here. So I say, do you own the property? Yes. Do you pay taxes on the property? Yes. Now, by you putting this deck here, is that going to interfere with the enjoyment of your neighbor's property in any way? No. All right. Variant, granted. So, yeah, talking about building and things like that, boy.
Being in that position with zoning, that would drive me insane. Like, well, it's not really, it's like if somebody in the middle of town here where I live, if they're in a residential and they want to start a daycare, well, then they got to have permission of the neighbors around them, and they got to go around and ask all their neighbors, and because it's not really commercial, it's residential, and it's like, really, you're giving parents a place to take their kids while they go to work, and we have to go through all this hullabaloo and get not only the government's permission, but the neighbor's permission, which brings another thing to mind. Now, I can't remember the actual terminology, but certificate of need. What's your thoughts on this stupid certificate of need? So somebody wants to build a new hospital in Jeff City. Not only do they have to beg at the feet of the government, but they have to ask the other hospitals if you should be allowed to build another hospital. I mean, how stupid can you be? I just, what are your thoughts on like certificate of need? It doesn't matter if it's ambulatory services or hospitals.
I'll be honest, this isn't one I'm as familiar with. But I would assume that if it's a private healthcare facility, I don't see why you need to be going to the local governmental authorities, pleading your case with them for why this is needed, why the why the city or community would benefit from that new development. To me, I would think you could be like any other business. Still, I was also on the Colorado Planning and Zoning Board, so you still do have to, regardless of, even if it's a private business, you still have to get permission and, go through all the jump through all the hoops. But yeah, I'm not sure how well I'm answering your question because, again, that's something I would honestly have to look into more to give you what my opinion on it is. Okay,
fair enough. So another question is, because we talked about the personal property tax, but what are your thoughts on, so there's several questions all intertwined here. It says, what's your thoughts on on property tax? Is she for eliminating it? If so, can she elaborate on how she would like to see it go? Like phase it out, eliminate it all at once. So what are your thoughts on just property tax in general? Boy. I know, see? Well, I'm not throwing softballs here, lady. So.
No. I appreciate this. No, this is good, John. You're actually my first interview that I've had, so I appreciate this.
Seriously, this is the first one you've had?
Well, because I'm not a primary opponent, so nobody cares what I think until after the primary.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. I forgot.
I haven't been invited to any of the debates or anything like that. So.
Shame, shame.
Yeah, but so yeah, no, I am in favor of eliminating property taxes. Um, I would say it would have to be phased out. Would be the really realistically speaking. I sat down and planned out, you know, Catherine Dreher's plan for eliminating property taxes. No, I haven't done that. But I am in favor of eliminating them. It would have to be a phasing out process. I would love to see schools entirely privatized. But again, that's a big hill to climb, right? So is eliminating property taxes. Like I said, I homeschool my children, so I'm one of those. I pay property taxes. Over half of my property taxes go to the school district. And for many other people who homeschool or their children go to private school, they don't have any children or their children are grown. Their property taxes are going to a school that is already overfunded and wants more taxes. Usually every year, most districts will come back and say we need more money. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So yeah, it would need to be phased out because so much of and they're monopolies, they really are. Government schools, police, ambulance, fire districts, the government has monopoly on them, and they're all funded by, our property taxes, hospitals. So there would definitely have to be a phasing out process to figure out how, we can still have those services if we don't also work toward privatizing those.
Yeah. Now, because when he brought up, phasing it out, I thought of when I interviewed Senator Bill Eigel here. I think it was last year, and we're talking about his bill to eliminate the personal property tax. Now, he wanted to phase it out at the rate of inflation. He's like, if inflation's low, it takes longer. He's like, right now, which back then it was 5 or 6%. He's like 3 years, it's gone.
Right.
And they just said, well, you just do it in St. Charles County. They want to see him fail so they can point and laugh at him. And I was like, that's a good idea because what he was looking at is giving these counties and localities time to figure out how to restructure to get the funding for their schools, so not just cutting it off all at once, but do it at the rate of inflation. Now, you think about it right now. If we did it at the rate of inflation right now, if it keeps going any worse, it'd be gone in a year. And they'd really be scrambling, which would be fine with me because that's what they get for wasting so much freaking money.
Right.
So I got another question here because we had a bill, and I cannot remember the bill number, just this past legislative session that our notorious the blocker decided not to even let on the floor, and it was the elimination of the sales tax on groceries. What are your thoughts on that?
The elimination of the sales tax on groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I haven't really looked into as much either. Sales tax, of all the taxes that I would agree with is the sales tax. I would like to see income taxes eliminated and property taxes eliminated, which then just leaves sales taxes. But just on groceries, that's something, honestly, I would have to think about. I would have to think about what are the advantages and disadvantages of those, and that is not something I have investigated. So, unfortunately, I don't feel like I could give you an answer right off the top of my head without doing some research, but I appreciate that question, and you know what? I'm going to write it down.
Well,
I can look into that.
A lot of this came up because they thought, well, I don't even know if it might have been, I don't remember if it was temporary or permanent, but it was because of the inflation that everybody that goes to the store was feeling like, well, we can cut a little bit off the bottom. They had the figures, and the amount of money that they made was, compared to sales tax that you pay on everything else, was really a minimal hit. Like, if you were going to hit the sales tax somewhere, like groceries was a place where you could cut, and it didn't seem to affect anything as bad as, if you did it on property or cars or anything like that. 'Cause that's the big
Right.
cut there. So people
I'd
are
like
like,
to see us eliminate the gas tax. Let's start
oh
there.
my God, don't even get us started on that. We are all Dave Schatz, probably every time we talk about that, I know his ears are on fire because I
Right.
always just go, dude. And I love it because he's running for Senate. He tries to play himself off as this super conservative guy and freedom lover. And he's the one that tied up SAFA. Until he got his gas tax, SAFA
Yes.
wasn't going anywhere. And I'm like, dude, why? 3 times people said no
Right.
to you, and you're hell bent on getting it through anyway. And from the thing that I've been hearing, and I still haven't researched it, was really MoDOT isn't really going to get a significant enough amount of that money. Apparently, some people got some nice pay raises, but the money for the roads and bridges still they weren't going to get a significant enough portion of that tax revenue to really make a difference in the end. That's what I keep hearing. Now, again, I did a little digging and I could not find anything significant. I hadn't seen any articles or find any postings on dollar figures. But I know when I was talking to Representative Reich last week, she made comments that, in her area, the road signs, you can't read them, and the people
Right.
are always picking up trash, and there's potholes everywhere. And she's like, what'd they do with the money now? And they're getting this money now. Not to mention the fact the insulting part is, oh, if you keep all your receipts, you can get a refund.
Right.
That was it. That was their little, oh, well, we're being nice. And how many people are going to sit there? Because you know how it is. You go to the gas pump, you pump your gas, the freaking gas pump's out of receipt paper. You got to walk inside. And it's got to have the address and phone number and date.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they make it. Well, that's all you got to do. Really? Do you do it? Do you do it? Do you go into the gas station every time? I
actually do.
Oh, well, I know. She said she does too. She's like, I do it. She goes, I want that money back. But they know the
Well,
majority
I don't care
aren't
about
going
the money.
to.
Sorry, I'm not so much about the money. I just feel like, it's like they threw a dog a bone. Okay, I'm going to give you the paperwork to do it then.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, but let's see.
To go just real quick, to go back to the grocery
Yeah.
thing, because I do understand, with inflation and the cost, and it's going to get worse. It is. The cost of, our food. But I really I don't know if you saw what Maine did, where they passed the right to food constitutional amendment.
No, I hadn't heard about that.
Yes, I love this. They just passed it last November, and it essentially says, states kind of the obvious. We have a natural, inherent, and unalienable right to food, including the right to save and exchange seeds and the right to grow, raise, harvest, produce, and consume the food of their own choosing for their own nourishment, sustenance, bodily health, and well-being, as long as an individual does not commit trespassing, theft, poaching, or other abuses of private property rights, public lands, or natural resources in the harvesting, production, or acquisition of food. Now, what this also allows is for individuals, homesteaders, small farmers to be able to control for themselves how they produce, sell, and distribute food. So a local grocery store could say, hey, yeah, you can come and sell your locally produced food in our store. I just think that is a great approach, if we're not able to eliminate the sales tax or deal with the sales tax, but just allowing for a better way of not only locally producing food, but being able to sell and distribute it within our own communities.
Yeah, that's a good point because I just read, I don't know how many months ago it was, some guy, St. Peter's, St. Charles something, they were at the time of the pandemic, so he decided to plant a bunch of sunflowers in his yard. And I kid you not, apparently this area, they calculate flowers to grass ratio, and he went over that.
St.
Now,
Peter's, I'm sorry. St. Peter's might as well be fenced off and become its own republic. Sorry.
no, it's fine. I'm with you on that because I read that and I went and I had to pause and I go, listen to this again, folks. A flowers
Yeah.
to grass ratio. Some bureaucrat is sitting in an office going, I don't know how many square feet you got. Let's see now. You can use this many square feet of flowers, but you got to have this many. Now, to me, that stinks of, well, we don't want you growing gardens in your yard because, God forbid,
Yes.
you wouldn't go to the grocery store and support your local grocery store. You know what? I like what Maine did there. I wouldn't mind seeing that in Missouri where we say, and that,
Yeah.
you know, again, the cities can't say, well, you can't grow a garden because that would be too many flowers over the grass ratio. And
Right.
who the hell comes up with this? Seriously? Who sits and thinks of this and goes, I mean, it's like they all take dumb pills. They have a meeting. Who can come up with the craziest idea? And they go, well,
Right.
flowers to grass ratio? Bob, that's a good one. That's the one we're going with this month.
And Bob, you can drive around with your measuring tape.
Yeah, you can calculate out the square
Calculate
footage of the
how high
flowers.
it is.
Oh, my God. It just, it's mind-blowing. I'm trying to be nice. This goes out on the radio, so I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to, I know there were more topics that I wanted, or more questions that I had about, okay. So let me know if you're familiar with this one. Another one of the most popular bills that got sidelined by Plocker the Blocker was the state. And then I didn't come up with that. Somebody in a group of the Missouri Freedom Initiative, that was their nickname. But I love it. But there was a Stand Your Ground Enhancement Act. So right now, if you would, you know, in the act of self-defense in your own home, there's a good possibility you have to go through a jury trial. You have to inject self-defense into the argument. With the Stand Your Ground Enhancement Act, you would simply go in front of a judge, not a jury trial, and they would have to try to prove that self-defense was not involved. So it puts the onus on the state instead of you. And they tried to tell one of the guys in the Missouri Freedom Initiative, well, that's not really fair because we don't really have the resources. And he goes, really? The state doesn't have the resources? You think these people out here have all the attorney's fees just sitting around waiting to spend? You guys don't have the resources? You know, they try to, the poor pitiful state. Oh, BS. We know who's got the money and who doesn't. The state's got the power in this. But what are your thoughts on a bill like that? Because, of course, it got squashed by the blockers. So what are your thoughts on enhancing your ability to stand your ground and not just be thrown into a jury trial because someone tried to kick your door in and you decided to put an extra hole in them?
Oh, well, yeah, I would totally be in favor of that, of enhancing it. Yeah, I mean, if it puts the burden on the judge, where it's, I'm innocent until proven guilty. I don't have to sit and try to prove my innocence. That should be upon. You're saying it's a judge, it wouldn't be a jury. So
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have to pay
trial.
all the.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to pay the lawyers or all the legal fees to,
Yep.
if it was clear that, because we do have the stand your ground and the castle
doctrine.
Doctrine, yes. So yeah, I would definitely be in favor.
Okay.
Of enhancing that. It shouldn't be so difficult to prove, or that I was clearly in fear that somebody was threatening me and had to use deadly force.
Yeah,
So,
especially if they're kicking your door in, they're not there to, they're not your new neighbors introducing themselves and bringing you a cake. Clearly,
no. Yeah, and I've taken the concealed carry classes, and they talk about that, I mean, most burglaries happen in the middle of the day when they know you're gone. So if somebody's, busting into your house at night, they're not there to, be your buddy or even just to steal things, probably. So.
Yeah, there's something shady going on about in that thing. Okay, we got another question.
Right.
What about using private currencies in Missouri? What are your thoughts on that? I don't know if
Are
they're
you
talking
talking about like gold and silver?
Yeah, I'm thinking they're talking precious metals and things of that nature.
Yes. Well, I did sign the Missouri Inflation Protection Act pledge that if I'm elected, the essence of that bill that hopefully we'll be seeing in the winter is that it would allow Missourians to use gold and silver as legal tender, and then it would allow businesses that if they wanted to accept that, they could. And I feel like that really is our greatest defense against inflation, would be being able to use either cryptocurrency or, and even cryptocurrency isn't necessarily completely free from it, but definitely being able to use gold and silver as legal tender.
Okay.
So
Now, another thing, so there, which didn't make it through, thanks to the Missouri Freedom Initiative, really fought hard. There was a House joint resolution that changed the rules on, ballot initiatives to where it really ramped up the amount of signatures you had to have. And what they said was it's too easy to change the Constitution, which we all agreed with. It's too easy to change it. But they were wanting to, instead of a certain amount of counties, you had to have a certain percentage in every county. Now, their logic behind this was, well, we're trying to keep the Soroses and the likes out of the state. And what we were trying to say is that's the only people who will get ballot initiatives through if you pass this, because they have the ability to pay people in every freaking county to go get the signatures. So the only people who are going to get ballot initiatives are the ones with the big dollar. So that got defeated. But do you think it's too easy to change the Constitution? Because there was another bill, and I cannot, Casey Rich, he remembers every bill number and he's throwing up there. Now it changed the wording, and I can't even remember how it changed it. It was a much better bill. I think what it did is it increased the amount of voters, the percentage of people who voted yes to actually pass it. So instead of penalizing people trying to get it on the ballot, it did it on the back end where you had to have a higher percentage of yeses to pass that ballot initiative. HDR 79 was the evil one, and then somebody else had a bill that was better, and we're like, we can work on this next year and perfect a bill that will solve the problem as far as too easy to change the Constitution, but instead of putting the burden on people just trying to get a ballot initiative, we changed those percentages to the actual polling place and how the percentage of yes votes versus no votes in the final outcome. Do you think it's too easy to change the Missouri Constitution? And how would you see, if you do, how would you see changing it so it's not so easy, but not just leaving it to the big money boys to have their way in the state?
Right. Yeah. Give me just a second. Yeah, I do believe it is too easy to change our Constitution. And I actually had felt that it should require a 2/3 vote of the people rather than a 50+1. But and I'm trying to find this that he sent me right now is the problem. Tom Mart, Lock and Smith Foundation, brought up a much better plan where it would still be, I can't find it right now, sorry, because I want to get the wording right.
Sure.
But it would essentially be where it would also require a vote of the legislate of the House.
Okay, so he may be talking House Bill 132. I think that was part of it. It was a higher percentage of voters, and then once if it was passed by the people, the legislature would look at it, I guess maybe to make sure it was constitutional or whatever. It would also have to be looked at by the legislature. So that's probably House Bill 132 that he's speaking
But it would also require a vote of the legislature that also passed it as well. So yes, that's, yeah.
Okay. Now,
So I'm not familiar with the bill numbers, but yes,
yeah,
I believe that's the better route to go.
I forgot them all, so my scatterbrain all over the place. So, do you have time to hang out a little bit longer, Catherine?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I've got about 2 minutes here, and I have to clip for a station at the Lake of the Ozarks, and then I continue recording. I just have to clip at 56 minutes for them. Um,
Okay.
so, do you have a website for your campaign?
I do. It's real easy. It's catherinedreher.com.
Okay, because I want to put that in the show notes and in the YouTube description so people can find you and look up everything as it goes to you and your. So do you have your like kind of your platform and what you stand for and everything on there? I mean, I'm just trying because
It does. You'll learn if you actually. I have a Facebook page that I'm much more active on. I mean, my website's just kind of a landing platform. It does have, my three main issues or principles are limited government, individual liberty, and self-ownership. Everything falls under that, as far as I'm concerned. But my candidate page on Facebook, I update it daily with my thoughts and opinions on what's happening. So
okay,
that's probably where you would learn more.
All right. So, all right, folks in the KEYK audience, thank you, as always, for joining me for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. And please make sure you look me up on Facebook by the same name. Just look up Missouri Liberty Report. Find me on YouTube. Same name, Missouri Liberty Report on YouTube. Subscribe, follow, draw some traffic so that way maybe I can get some recommendations to other folks who are doing a search for freedom in Missouri on the YouTubes. But anyway, thanks so much again. Next week I don't have any guests. First time in 5 weeks I don't have a guest unless something changes, and we'll just go with the hot topic of the day. But again, thanks so much to all of you who tune in every week, and we'll see you all next week. All right, continuing on, Catherine. One of the people in the live stream said some of the General Assembly just wanted the ballot initiative gone, and
Right.
one of the other points is when they were talking about this, which kind of raised some eyebrows and got people's hackles up, is some people, some of them talk like they just didn't trust the people in the state, like they could just handle it all, and that's it. But then when we see the House floor leader and the I guess the majority leader or whatever, two people in the House controlling what bills hit the calendar, what hit the floor,
Right.
two people in control of that whole process, and it's like, no, sometimes you all don't listen. Again, the three most popular bills in the state were squashed. Susie Pollack's medical freedom bill, they just straight up lied on the House floor and screwed her over, and she's into like, no, we're not passing this version of the bill. My version was perfect. And so this was, if this ballot initiative, this House Joint Resolution would have went through, it would have made it nigh impossible for the voters to tell the legislators to go pee up a rope because, clearly they're not listening. So that was our last resort. Okay, you don't want to listen. You're not giving us what we want. This is a very popular idea amongst the people. The ballot initiative is your last step to overstep the legislature, who's supposed to listen to their constituents. But yeah, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, is there a topic that you would like to discuss? Is there something that we haven't covered yet that you'd like to talk about? Because the floor is open. I got all the time in the world here.
Boy, where do I begin? Well, yeah, that's a big question. Something that I feel goes pretty largely untouched, especially by Republicans, is criminal justice reform. That is a big topic for me. It is, there's things that I want to see changed. just all around with our judicial system, our police, our courts. So we could talk about that.
Okay, well, you know what? And that brings up something because I want to know your thoughts on the legalization of recreational marijuana here in Missouri because I've only had one guest on with me so far, and that's Robert Smith, and you know who he is. He's the
Yes.
only one that was for it. No, Ganaya did not ask about recreational marijuana yet. So what are your thoughts on recreational marijuana? What do you think about that?
No, I'm in favor of recreational marijuana. Again, it goes back to my platform of self-ownership. You own your body. What you choose to put into it, that's up to you. The government has no right to regulate that. You know, and the same goes for they have no right to tell you you have to take this vaccine or that vaccine. You know, with marijuana, more people have died from alcohol overdose. I can't find. I tried finding statistics of people who died from marijuana overdose, and there's next to none who have. So again, it's just a matter of I own my body. What I want to put into my body is not the government's decision. That's my decision. But on the other hand of that, I have to be willing to reap the consequences of those decisions. And, you know, just like with alcohol, we have laws that, you know, if you're intoxicated while you're driving, you know, that, I mean, because marijuana does impair your judgment, there's no getting around that. But there are already laws in place, you know, for if under any sort of drug, whatever you do while under that influence, we already have laws that deal with that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Long story short, I'm in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana.
Yeah, that's one issue. Again, I've mainly, or you and Robert are the only two libertarians that I've. Actually, I take that back. I've had one. Brandon Wilkinson said he was cool. He did not have a problem. He thought on the federal level they just decriminalize it and be done. He's running for Congress, so he was like, he's the only Republican that I've interviewed that's like, yeah, that's cool, let's do it. Everybody else is, I mean, the words no more leave my mouth, and they're like, no, it's like that's the one. It's like, oh, we were so close, we're so close. And there's a lot of them running for House that just are absolute, and they say, well, I've seen people, you know, that they get hurt by it. I'm like, hurt by weed?
I know.
What people have you seen? I mean, the only thing you got to worry about is them getting diabetes because they're eating cookie dough all the time. I mean, other than that, what? But you know,
right.
One of them, most of the time, I let them give their answer, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. One time, I said, don't you think that we can blame this on how we were educated as kids? Because if you're you know, you and I are about the same age. Remember, marijuana was so dangerous. We go out, we put it as a Schedule I drug. We tell kids it's the devil's lettuce, and then they smoke it for the first time, and they're like, "What's the big deal?" And then they may hop to something more powerful because you lied to them one time, right? I mean, isn't that right?
It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, it's a gateway drug. Well, yeah, because you lied to them. You lied to them, told them it was the most awful thing they could do. They do it, and they're like, "Well, I'm not stabbing people for cash so I can get some weed. I'm not robbing a store. I just get high in my house, and then I eat or laugh or you know just relax for the day, take the edge off." Yeah. So I told her, I said, maybe it's not in marijuana's case. Maybe it's not the drugs, but maybe it's the drug partnerships and the government. The propaganda machine that caused this issue, not people because somebody wanted to take the edge off or help with their pain or because you know that stereotypical, oh, you freaking weed snorter. It's like, what weed snorter? And they think, oh, they just don't want to do anything. They're just a bunch of lazy bums. They just want to sit around and get high all day. And it's like, how many people? I don't know how many people have. Some people use it to help them sleep. Some people have issues with migraines or some kind of, especially chronic back pain, things like that. And
Okay.
people, those people aren't using it to get high. They're using
Right.
it because it actually helps them out, and they don't get addicted to it. And I'm like,
Right.
you're so. It's just like they're so okay with just throwing pain pills at people, but you use something
Yeah.
that you can just literally grow in your house
Right.
that gives you benefit, that doesn't cause really any health risk or adverse health risk, and
Right.
that's just off the table immediately. And I'm like, are we still? Are these people still watching? Was
Why
it
are we
Reefer
still here?
Madness? Oh my God, it drives me
Right.
nuts.
Well, I mean, let's say even if somebody just wants to sit around and smoke pot in their house and be high all day, who are they hurting, and why is that the government's problem?
Well, yeah, you do have a point, because I mean, I don't. I've never seen a person stoned be like sitting on their
Right.
front porch, and somebody just comes walking by, and they're not screaming, "Get out of my yard!" What they're thinking is,
No.
oh God, do I look high right now?" That's what they're thinking. They're paranoid. They might be a little paranoid. They're not
If
screaming,
that's
"Get
what
out
they
my
want
yard!"
to do with their life, then no, they're not hurting me.
And as long as they don't ask for taxpayer money to bail them out of a situation, who freaking cares?
Right.
Really, who
Yeah.
freaking cares?
That's all I'm saying.
This is a good conversation, Catherine. I'm glad I'm glad you came on with me.
Me too.
Okay, so when you're talking about the other thing on the social justice reform, something else that I've been harping on, and I bet you do too, is the amount of non-violent offenders stuck with mandatory minimum sentencing. What's your thoughts on that whole thing?
And mandatory minimum sentencing. End it. Just end it. Yes. It strips families of providers. I mean, they're going in circles trying to pay fines, and they can't pay fines because they got to go to work, and now they're going to get thrown in jail. We just need to stop. We need to stop making criminals out of thin air. Honestly, this is what we do. We create these laws that now create criminals, nonviolent criminals, and it just needs to end. And so does mandatory minimum sentencing.
Yeah, because my wife says, "What's the difference between marijuana and a kid playing games all day on energy drinks?" I mean, honestly, that kid's more likely to have a heart attack than the kid smoking weed and playing video games.
It's true. It is true with these monster drinks. I mean, not just monster, but just these
All
energy
of them.
drinks. Yeah, it's frightening. Yep.
It's like
So.
I bet if you pulled out a stethoscope right after they down a can of Red Bull, and you sit there and listen to their heartbeat, you're thinking,
Oh my goodness. Yep.
did your heart own an automatic weapon? 'Cause good God, kid.
Right. Yep.
Casey. Casey Rich says they sure are laughing a lot. We must be high. I'm not high, I promise.
I'm not high.
Catherine's not high either. Oh boy. Neither one of us are high during this episode.
Nope.
And I'll be honest, it's been a long time since I smoked any marijuana. If I tried to do it and do an interview, oh my God, that would be the most. People would be like, "Yeah, you can't do a radio show anymore because clearly you're having issues."
I have never even smoked marijuana.
Oh, okay.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
But you go right ahead. I don't care.
And that's the thing. That's you bring that up, but that's an important thing. That's an important fact. There are more and more
Right.
people out there that have never smoked it and said, even if it's legalized, we won't. But they don't want to stop someone else who does.
Right. But
People are starting to come around to the fact that, because they start meeting people that smoke it, use it for maybe a medical issue or whatever, and they're like,
yeah.
"Oh, we just thought you just sat around your house all day and be like, you got a full-time job, you got this and that and yeah, yeah. I'm not
Right.
I'm not a crackhead. I smoke a little of the devil's lettuce to get me by, so my back doesn't feel like I'm being beat up by a midget. That's all I'm doing
Right.
here."
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
but never giving a thought to someone. And I'm not begrudging anybody. I'm not bashing anybody. But people go home and drink a 6-pack every night, and there's no thought that
Exactly.
that person goes home and drinks a 6-pack to take the edge off.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's just a little bit
Yep.
weird there. Okay.
Yeah.
What else would you like to see? I mean, we touched on the non-violent criminals, but what else would you like to see reformed in criminal justice reform? What are some other topics that really chafe your behind?
Well, civic asset forfeiture.
Oh, there's another one I missed. I forgot about
Yeah.
civil asset forfeiture.
Yes. Um, and I believe Missouri is a state. I have to think on it for a little bit. Where it has to be, linked to a crime, but it still requires a third party to get it back. Like you still have to go to trial to get your stuff back.
Yeah, I think Tony Lavasco had a bill
Yes, I
on
love Tony
this
Labasco.
and eliminate. Yeah,
In a friendly way.
yeah. Tony's a good guy. Tony's pretty good people. He understands freedom and liberty, and I like Tony. I've never met Tony, but once I hit the weekend shift, Catherine, I really hope you get elected, because once I get to the weekend shift at my job, there will be maybe, I don't know, once every month or once every 2 months, I will just be going up to the Capitol to talking to some of the reps and senators about certain bills or whatever. I really hope that you win so I can come up and
Thank you.
visit with you while I'm
That
there.
would be awesome.
Yeah, because some of them that I'll be honest, some of them I don't want to talk to, but there's some that I've interviewed here that are in the primary, and I know you don't have to worry about a primary, so you and Robert are not worrying about primary, but a lot of them are, and it's just like, God, it would be so nice that some of these people that I've interviewed win their election, especially if they're going for their first term or, their first run at it and they win. It sure would be nice, because I always talk to them by phone, except for one of them, actually two of them. And it would be nice to just sit there and walk in and go, hey, you freaking did it. That's awesome. You got here
Yeah.
and you're going to make people mad, and that's awesome. I hope you...
Yeah.
So, do you know about I think it's called the ESG ratings that they're trying to push now?
ESG.
That's it's environmental, social justice. I don't remember what the G stands for. Probably goofball. But they're going to rate companies on how they do environmentally, how they do with social justice, and give them a ranking.
Okay.
And the banks are involved now. Cherie Rice said they have some people who were in banking that are going to be crafting legislation so that Missouri stays out of the whole... I didn't know if you were familiar with this topic. It's just a bunch of stupid wokeness, but banks are getting involved. Now, I did see that a state passed a bill. I think West Virginia passed a bill on the top 5 banks and said, we're blacklisting you because you are in league with these people who are bashing farmers and you're pushing all this environmentalism. So they blacklisted the top 5 banks for being too woke and coming after farmers and coming after that. But would you be in favor of crafting a bill and getting through the legislature that Missouri just says, no thanks, we're not about the ESG?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think government has... There's too much government regulation in general. Just, yeah. I'm speechless because I'm like, the fact that you would even need a bill to say we're not doing this just seems silly, but...
Well, and that's the thing. You're running for office and you get it because people think that, there was a guy, what were their name? The Constitutional Grassroots Movement backed a guy, I believe in Georgia or Alabama, running for office. And I think he was going from state office to Congress. And people said, well, he didn't write any bills while he was in office. And he's like, I don't have to write bills. Maybe I'm sitting here trying to keep bad crap from happening. And because I didn't craft any legislation, I'm lazy. He literally, that was the bad spot that people had on him is he didn't write any
Oh
legislation
my
while he was
goodness.
in office. We have a long way to go in educating the public, and you know this because you're vice chair in the Missouri Libertarian Party. You
Yeah.
know the work ahead for educating the public on government's role in their lives.
Right.
Now, you've probably seen this firsthand. Can you give us an example of something that maybe someone said to you and you're like, oh my God, that's not even close?
Um, Probably nothing's coming to mind off the top of my head. Um, I don't know, but I mean, I think you're right. And I'm not answering that question. I know that, but I'm just going to back to what you were just saying, because I have said this so many times, that if I do nothing during my entire time in the state Senate other than stop bad bills from getting through, I will have accomplished a goal.
That is true. I wish that more legislators, whether they're House or Senate, would understand. Now, again, SAFA was great. There's some bills that come through that's like, yeah, we needed this. It's unfortunate,
Right.
but with SAFA, we should have never, ever had to pass a bill like that.
No, but we saw Biden was elected and what was probably coming down the pipeline, and so we were going to be proactive about it.
Which is nice because a lot of times governments are reactive, and this time we got proactive. Now that was
Right.
That was 8 years. So that was well before Biden was in office. That was 8 years.
That's true.
Of
But
battling.
I think once he was elected, then people were like, "Whoa, we better get this passed."
Yeah, especially Republicans are like, whoa, we've kind of ignored it for a while, but in order to look good for our constituents, we better get this thing through. If that
Right.
wasn't a political, game that they played, I don't know what it is.
Right.
So, Catherine, is there anything else that you would like to bring up or discuss?
Yeah. Well, still with criminal justice reform, I
Sure.
would like to see, qualified immunity abolished, prosecutorial immunity abolished. And we're going to just run the whole gamut of reforming the justice system.
Yeah, I didn't even think about those two topics. I don't like qualified immunity, and I don't like prosecutorial immunity either. Qualified immunity, and here's where I come down at, and you can say where you come down at. This is my opinion on why I think these things happen, because now I'm not bashing anyone. I'm not bashing the fire department and the police department that were in New York City at 9/11. But after 9/11, the hero worship of first responders really kicked into high gear. And it seems like after that not all of them, but there's several police that get it in their heads they can do whatever they need to do, and they're going to be considered heroes because they possibly stopped a crime. I think I think people in general, a lot of people, created this issue with their hero worship. Instead of saying no, they are supposed to serve and protect, not be revenue generators or any of that thing. They are supposed to serve and protect the people of their city, county, state, whatever. Not, I need to write more speeding tickets so the city can get more money, or I need to do this big drug bust so we can get a portion of the proceeds. I am here to serve and protect. That's my take on it. That we've created this hero worship society when it comes to first responders, and I think we've created somewhat of a problem with that.
Right. Was it 2015? I believe the Supreme Court ruled that police officers are under no obligation to protect life.
That's right.
They have no constitutional obligation to protect life. Again, I'm not bashing police officers either. I see reform in the system. That reform is needed, and I'm probably I push for that so much. And I'll be honest, it wasn't something I thought about before, but we do have an adopted black son, and it wasn't until things like Ferguson happened, or when Tamir Rice was shot for playing with a toy gun, I wouldn't allow my black son to play in the front yard with the toy gun anymore, something I never had to think about with my biological son. And I'm not trying to say that our system is racist or police officers are racist. Please don't get me wrong. That is not what I am saying. But when I watch these things happen, and as a mother, I have concern when I see those things. And and it is true. You can read statistics. This isn't something just my opinion. Statistically, yes, black people are stopped, pulled over, searched for drugs more often than white people. Those are just the statistics. Those are just the facts of the matter. And after Ferguson, a lot of my black friends, my son was young at the time, but they would all come up to me and they'd say, you're going to have the talk with your son. And I'm like, the talk? I'm thinking like birds and bees. Like, what is the talk? And every single one of them, they're like, yeah, they know what the talk is. And it is, how they're supposed to handle law enforcement as a black person, as a black male. And, that's very sad to me, but, that's how it is. And, black communities, they know you have to give your son the talk. So, that is part of my push for criminal justice reform, we need to change the system. We need to make it so that, because unfortunately, especially in these inner cities, where people can't afford, with this mandatory minimum sentencing, and they can't afford the fees, they can't afford the fines, and they end up in jail. And you have end up with families that are fatherless because of this. So it needs to change.
Now, and that brings up something else interesting to me, Catherine, because when we talk about this, one of the things that came out in Ferguson afterwards was the amount of times people got stopped, ticketed, and everything else. And this is where public education comes in, because a lot of these, most of the big cities have a lot of Democrats in power. And so in these instances, people point the finger directly at the police. Now, the policemen should know that they are not to be revenue generators. But the people have to understand the police officers don't write those laws. They don't write those regulations. They're city councilmen. The people they elected and think that they're looking out for the poor are not, because they're using the police officers not only as revenue generators, but as a buffer between the poor communities and themselves. They want that revenue, and they're just like, well, just pull more people over. The people are putting all the blame on the police departments, and it's not just their fault. So there's another part.
They are law enforcement officers.
Right. That's another part of this educating the public that says, listen, we understand you have a problem. You have a distrust of the police. We understand the issue. But you have to understand, not only are the police officers at fault for being revenue generators, the people that you elect year in and year out, you keep putting back into office, they're creating the problem. They want to generate more money to give out. In order to get that money, they either tax you to death, or they have cops stop and fine you for every stupid thing that the city council can dream up as an offense.
Right.
So it's it's this multi-faceted issue that
it is.
I don't feel like especially the media doesn't delve in. They just want to point finger at the cops, or the other side just wants to say, well, this guy. No, there's other parts to this problem, but just the people and the police. Now, the media has not helped anything in this situation. They're just stirring the pot, because some people just had, mostly peaceful protests. Yeah, if I would have known burning buildings down would have been mostly peaceful.
Protesting.
I might have. I'm not saying that I would have tried it, but maybe I'd have given a thought. Like, well, I could have just said, well, I was trying to peacefully protest. They wouldn't listen, so I set the building on fire so they'd come outside and listen to what I had to say. And it worked. They all ran out, and I was like, now, hey, here's the problem. And they're like, you set my house on fire. Like,
never happens that way.
You wouldn't listen, so I wanted to get you outside. It's perfectly. I'm being perfectly peaceful right now, folks. Don't make me get violent. Like, you set my house on fire. I understand. Right. That was mostly peaceful. Now, Ganai brings up something. There's an assault weapon ban in the federal house as we speak. So there's some. I guess these tootly twits want to ban all semi-auto weapons. Now, the great thing is, in Missouri, we have SAFA. So now, I know people go, well, the ATF could enforce it. Yeah, but they don't have enough people. That's the whole thing. That's the beauty of it. The federal
Right.
government does not have enough employees to send to Missouri to take away everybody's semi-automatic weapons. That would not be a good outcome. But now, Ganai makes a good point here, because with SAFA, and when we were trying to pass it, and the outpour of, oh my God, you ruined law enforcement with SAFA, because we do have police unions that will
Yes, I know.
will visit the Capitol and try to help write legislation. So I was kind of wrong. Law enforcement at times do make laws because they come to the courthouses and try to get things passed that that favor them. He said they have military vehicles, they have military style weapons.
Yes.
And
yes.
so-
You know, and the militarization of police. It makes civilians look like we're the enemy. We're not the enemy.
And that's all thanks
But
to the
that's the
feds.
perception.
But that's all thanks to the feds and the Homeland Security saying, "Oh, we got all
Yep.
this
Yeah.
leftover vehicles. We'll sell them to you at a really good price."
Exactly.
Several
We
years
don't
ago,
need them, but okay.
yeah. In fact, this is another benefit. This is why I'm happy that I live where I live, because when this came about, the lieutenant here in town, the city marshal's like, "Hey, do we, we just got offered to buy, or they're offering to sell us this. I don't remember if it was certain types of equipment or whatever at a really good price." He's like, "Do we need to buy any of this?" And the officer goes, "Absolutely not. We do not
Right.
need any of that." Now,
Good.
he's a former Marine, and he's now a police officer, but he's one of the guys that just doesn't escalate a situation. And
Right.
I'm very
good.
happy that we have several officers here in town that act in a professional manner. We have one that I wish he'd find a job somewhere else, because his ego just is right out there. But for the most part, they're all pretty laid back, cool. They don't push the issue. They don't go around looking for tickets to write and all this stuff. So, but you get into the big metropolitan areas, and there's just politicians everywhere looking for a way to make more money so they can pass it out or pee it away on some pet project. And it just but getting people to understand that it's like, it's not the cops per se in some of these towns that are writing these laws. It's your county boards, it's your city aldermen. They're doing this stupid crap,
Right. I personally, and from a state legislature standpoint, not sure how it would work, but I don't believe municipal revenue should be tied to any sort of traffic fines. I just think that they shouldn't. Yeah, don't tie your municipal budget to traffic fines or violations.
Yeah, I do know that one of the officers here in town mentioned that sometimes, now this has been, 10 plus years ago, I think it was the city administrator at the time was like, "Hey, you're writing too many tickets." And then the next month, "Hey, you need to write more tickets." And he's like, "Really, dude? Really? Why are you, one month I guess they fell a little short on, I don't know if they had a quote on how much money they wanted to make from fines and tickets wrote by police. But yeah, every month it would seesaw back and forth. "Hey, you're writing too many. Oh, you're not writing enough." And it's like, why are you so up in arms about this anyway? Why are you so hell-bent on getting the police to write more tickets? But that was the city administrator we had at the time. I don't think we need a city administrator to begin with. I mean, I honestly, they make, I don't know what I think they make $75,000 a year or something. I'm like, God dang, that's a lot of money you could throw at a lot of the streets or something. But good Lord.
Right.
Having some guy go, "Oh, you should write more tickets." I have to pay you $75,000. I could walk up there and say that, and you don't have to pay me jack squat. You just extort money from me, and I can tell you the same thing, and you steal my money all the time. I can do the same friggin' thing he did for $75,000 less. But I digress. Anything else, Catherine?
Well, the area that I am running in is largely agricultural.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a couple things going on with that. I did see that recently they passed an eminent domain bill, that would prevent. It addressed the eminent domain issues with electrical transmission power lines. I don't know if you saw that, so that it would give farmers or landowners. So the bill would require companies to pay landowners 150% of the fair market value on their land. So it's kind of a protection for farmers when it comes to using for these electrical companies when they want to try to use eminent domain to gain rights to their land, which obviously I'm in favor of. I'm against eminent domain. So any bill, so this bill was recently passed to help protect landowners. But I'd like to see it go even further because this one only deals with electrical transmission line projects. And out here where I live in this district, we've got gateway broadband wanting to come through. And I'm in one of those purple zones that they want to come through. And I keep asking, what is this going to look like? How's this going to look like? And I never get an answer really yet, but I have commented about it. I guess that is one of the things where people are like, because I say, no, you are not going to come through my property and lay broadband down. And then I get people, but don't you care about all the people in the rural areas that don't have internet service, and the schools out in the rural areas that could use the internet service? I was like, it's not that I don't care, it's that it's my property. And I don't want you digging on my property, and then if there's a problem with the service, that's on my property. I've got to put up with construction people coming out. So I feel like that's something that's going to have to be addressed with this broadband, this gateway broadband coming through in our area. Again, not allowing eminent domain, or, like what they did. If they're going to try to use eminent domain, then, they better give me a whole heck of a lot of money to do anything on my property.
Yeah, I mean, that's only fair because, I mean, how many instances we see where somebody comes through and they do a project and they tear up Jake and they just kind of do a slapdash job of patching it up, and they're like, oh, good enough, moving on. And you're sitting there like, you left a crater the size of the Grand Canyon in my backyard.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We got to finish this project here. We'll get back. And then 2 years later, you have a lake, and you're like, I didn't need a lake, but I guess thank you.
No.
Thanks,
right.
guys.
But now I'm the bad person because
yeah.
I don't want that on my property. It's my property. Part of the government's job, very limited job, is to protect my property rights.
Are you sure? Because it's not what I hear. That's not what it's not what I've heard.
Right. Supposedly.
Yeah. Any
well, that's what I would do.
Okay, yeah. Any other topics? Because I'm out. I mean, it's fine. We can go on for a little while longer. I'm out of topics. I'm brain dead right now, and I hit a wall mentally.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a, you go, yeah.
Well, Catherine, I've really enjoyed our conversation tonight.
I have too.
I'm glad you came on. And folks, is it all right if I go ahead and announce your event coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Okay. Well, actually, why don't you tell the folks about it? Because it is your campaign. I'm not your campaign manager, and I don't want to step on your toes. So tell everybody about your campaign event you got coming up.
Okay. Yes. Well, Sunday, August 28th, at the Lincoln. It's the Fairground Hall in Lincoln County in Troy. I will be having an event called For Liberty. It will be from 2 to 4 p.m. It is a free event. Donations are always welcome. And I will have Tom Martz from Locke and Smith Foundation as a speaker. John Williams from Missouri Liberty Report will be there as well to speak. And I am still working on additional speakers, so those will be announced. But yeah, again, that's Sunday, August 28th from 2 to 4 p.m. in Troy at Fairgrounds Hall.
Awesome. And so just for background story, so August 6th, I wanted to announce this. I could announce it next week, but I'm going to, just as a reminder, August 6th, Robert Smith in Nevada, Missouri, will be having a campaign event. I think his runs from 6 to 9. And
Yeah, I believe that's right.
I will be there speaking, and then Catherine here invited me to speak at her event. I still swear to God, still swear up and down you and Robert conspired against me, but it's all good.
We collaborate. We don't conspire.
Okay, I'm sorry. They did collaborate against me, which is kind of the same thing, but not as evil, and it's fine. I need to get my feet wet into the public speaking realm anyway. I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to be more nervous than a dog crapping tacks doing this. And I just hope I don't make it awkward for everybody in the room. But
That's all right.
I am honored that people are asking me to come and speak, even though that's not my typical thing. I do need to put on my big boy pants and do it. So it seems like August 28th, I'm good to go unless an emergency arises or something. I should be golden.
Great.
I should be able to go there and speak. Hopefully some of my live stream viewers or anybody that hears this on whatever network can show up as well and join us, because I'm sure it's going to be a good time. And, donate some money to Catherine's campaign fund. Help her out because, again, I'm not a card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party, but some libertarians, again, not so much in this state, but in other states, you're like, you're not a libertarian, you're a lefty. But we seem to have some really good libertarian candidates here in the state of Missouri. So
we do.
I'm pleased that I'm happy that I'm your first interview, and I really hope that you get some more chances to speak, especially after the primary. I hope that you get some more chances to, radio, TV, whatever. But I'll tell you this, Catherine.
Right.
After the primary, anytime between now and election time, you want to come back on, update us on your campaign, you shoot me a message. I'll set up a date for you, and we'll have you back on, and we'll talk again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Well, have a great weekend, Catherine.
Okay.
Again,
You
thanks
too.
so much. I had a blast, and
Me too.
best of luck to you.
Okay, thank you. You have a good night.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was Catherine Dreher. Again, you can find her at catherinedreher.com. That's CatherineDreher.com. So catherinedreher.com. You can also find her on Facebook. And she posts, again, she's more active on Facebook about her campaign and some of the things that she's doing. Now we got the interview out of the way. To the people in District 3, I'm going to be honest here. Okay? So I'm not going to drop a bunch of curse words. But if you're sensitive to any curse words, put your earmuffs on. I'm a little pissed off right now. Okay? Just to be honest with you. Because, again, you remember I had Dustin Hill on a few weeks ago. Then 2 weeks after that, I had Brandon Wilkinson on. Now, I let them both speak. They're both running in my district. I had them both on. And I wasn't even aware at the time until right at the end. Then it dawned on me, they're both running in the same district. Now, if you watched the live stream the week I had Brandon on, we discussed a topic about naturalized citizens and how he admitted he was wrong. He had a 2-hour conversation with a friend, and it changed his mind. And he came out, and he's changed his mind, and he's said it multiple times. Now, Dustin is hell-bent on using that. He's used audio twice from my live streams. He's used bits from other live streams, and he's still pushing this crap, okay? He's still pushing this nonsense that Brandon doesn't want naturalized, or he only did it because it got put on Twitter or whatever. Now, Brandon and I have had multiple conversations on this, and I believe that Brandon is being very forthright and honest with me, forthcoming and honest with me. Because it's not like he didn't sound like, he just made something up off the top of his head. He drew it out, okay? And I believe him. I happen to believe him. You may not, and that's fine. That's your right. But son of a gun, I believe that Dustin Hill's moral compass doesn't point north because he's pulling this. He put out this 3.5-minute video today spouting this nonsense using audio clips from my show. Here's the worst thing. The one where he plays the clip where I asked Brandon about this thing in my interview with him. And right before he starts to talk, cuts it off. He uses another thing where I go, at the end of Brandon's interview, I go, you know who he's talking about? He's talking about Dustin Hill. He's talking about Dustin Hill. That's his, somebody he's running against. Now, right after that, I said, I don't know, folks. I'm kind of 50-50 here. He cut that off. So for someone who says they're going to be different, we need someone different. He just pulled a mainstream media act. He clipped off a very important part of the audio and left it out and then makes a statement. This guy's not electable. Well, I'm sorry. Dustin, you're acting like a normal politician. And I, for one, don't like it. It really burned my ass to hear you do that. And it really ticked me off for you to use my audio clips and make it seem like I'm in league with you, which at the time I wasn't endorsing anyone. Let me be clear. Now, I'm not telling you who to vote for because I am not a political organization. I am not going to come out and say, I blah, blah, blah. But if you ask me today, tomorrow, August 2nd, who are you voting for? You got Dustin Hill, and you got Brandon Wilkinson. I'm going to look at you and say, let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Because to me, that was unprofessional. Now, I'm gonna say this too, okay? Because I was interviewing people running for office. Some people are going to behave in that manner, and I should expect it. I should have expected it. I shouldn't be so surprised. But he kind of pulled the wool over my eyes a little bit, okay? And that's my fault. It's my fault. That's my fault. Now, people have apologized for bringing him to me. Don't, because this was a blessing in disguise. I interviewed both guys, found out who the one is that I would rather vote for, and eliminated the other one from any thought in my head, other than the fact of how bad he ticked me off. And I'm just saying this because anybody else wants to come on my show, I don't mind interviewing candidates. I'll do it every week if I had to. No problem. But for God's sake, do not take my audio clips of another candidate, cut it off where they answer, and make it seem like, oh, look at it, he's a turd. This guy that does this podcast backs me. Don't do that. I don't want to hear anything from Dustin Hill again. I don't want to be contacted by him. Nothing. I'm done. I saw that. I got tagged in a Twitter post this morning, sitting in a parking lot before work. Looked it up, started watching a video, and then I contacted Brandon and said, hey, did you know this is on there? He's still, and I even called him out and said, dude, you're using outdated stuff. He came on my show and changed his mind. Really, bro? What are you doing? And then he brought up something else, which Brandon has explained in other events, and I'm not going to go into because I'm not his campaign manager, okay? But do not come on my show. If I give you a forum to speak from, if I give you a platform to speak from, I'm going to ask you questions, you answer. We'll talk about whatever you want. No problem, all day long, every day, any time you want. But then don't turn around and use me and my audio or my video, clip off important pieces of information, and then put it out there like I'm your boy. I'm not your boy. I'm not your boy, okay? So I feel as Dustin stepped over a line, he's acting like a normal politician. And for me, let's go Brandon. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But I wanted to bring that up because it really, really, really burned my butt this morning. I was on fire when I got into work today. I was not a happy camper, if you know what I mean. So I'll leave it at that. But here's something else. I want to play this because I found this video on Facebook. And it's Jordan Peterson. And it's an interesting message. and it's a message to the Christian churches. Now, I'm going to play this because I found it interesting enough to play for my audience. Man, I don't know how long I've been going on this, but what time is it now? Hour and 45 minutes. I'm going to play this video. I do a little bit of commentary at the end, and we'll call it a night. But I want you to listen to this. This is Jordan Peterson, message to the Christian churches, because it's about almost 11 minutes long, but I really like it. Hopefully I don't blow your...
It is, of course, completely presumptuous of me to dare to write and broadcast a video entitled Message to the Christian Churches, but I'm going to do it anyway because I have something to say and because that something needs to be said. I've been speaking to and watching and listening to audiences all over the Western world for the past 4 years, in person and in virtual form, and have learned a few things in consequence. It all started in some sense with the lectures I did on Genesis in 2017. My family and I took a risk and rented out a theater in Toronto on the off chance that there might be an audience for what might be described as a psychological approach to our ancient stories. And lo and behold, and miracle of miracles, there was. I completed 15 or so lectures walking through the first biblical book, sold out the theater, and attracted, surprisingly, millions of viewers, Christians, Jews, Muslims, and atheists. And most of the people who attended live, and the majority of those who watched online, were young men. That is not a phenomenon that can be easily accounted for, but let me try. Now in the West, because of the weight of historical guilt that is upon us, a variant of the sense of original sin in a very real sense, and because of a very real attempt by those possessed by what might be described as unhelpful ideas to weaponize that guilt, our young people face a demoralization that is perhaps unparalleled. This is particularly true of young men, although anything that devastates young men will eventually do the same to young women. And that, in this era of antinatalism and equally reprehensible nihilism, is precisely the point. When they are children, boys are hectored for their toy preferences, which often include toy weapons such as guns, and their more boisterous playing style, as boys require active rough and tumble play, even more than girls, for whom it is also a necessity. When in grade school, boys are admonished, shamed, and controlled in a very similar manner by those who think that play is unnecessary, particularly if it's competitive, and who value a docile, harmless obedience above all. Shades of Dolores Umbridge. Following all that, because that's not enough, even when pursued assiduously for total demoralization, is the inculcation of an extremely damaging ideology, which essentially consists of 3 accusations. Number 1, human culture, particularly in the West, is best construed as an oppressive patriarchy, motivated by the desire, willingness, and ability to use power, defined as the compulsion of others against their will, to attain what are purely selfish and self-serving ends. This is true at every level of analysis. Marriage is akin to slavery, friendship to exploitation, political disagreement to war, and business arrangements to deception and theft. And this is true not only of the current social arrangements that characterize our culture, particularly in the West, but also the fundamental reality of history itself. Accusation number 2. Human activity, particularly that undertaken in the West, is fundamentally a planet-despoiling enterprise. The human race is a threat to the ecological utopia that existed before us and that could hypothetically exist in our absence. We might well be construed even as a cancer that threatens the very viability of the complex systems that make up the ecosystem of the earth that shelters and supports us. We are facing a Malthusian catastrophe of overpopulation and biosphere degradation. And we have to place extreme limits on our wants, even our needs, so that survival itself, even in a much reduced form, can be guaranteed. Accusation number 3. The prime contributor both to the tyranny that makes up the oppressive patriarchy and structures all of our social interactions, past and present, and the unforgivable despoiling of our beloved Mother Earth is damnable male ambition, competitive and dominating, power-mad, selfish, exploitative, raping and pillaging. You might think that I'm overstating the case. Think again, sunshine. We in the West are facing an all-out assault at the deepest levels on what that old joker Jacques Derrida deemed the phallogocentric conceptual structure of civilization itself. To take that apart, that's a society centered on the encouraging, adventurous, masculine spirit, and that privileges that hated word of all things, the divine logos. And what should we worship and celebrate properly other than that? Deconstructionists, the words of that mass murderer Karl Marx? And it is precisely those young men who are deeply conscientious, capable of guilt and regret, who have come to believe in pain that every deep impulse that moves them out into the world for the adventure of their life, even that impulse drawing them to women, is nothing but the manifestation of a spirit that is essentially satanic in nature. This is not only wrong theologically, morally, psychologically, practically, and scientifically, it is literally anti-true. It's not a mere misstatement about the nature of reality, a minor conceptual error, but something that literally could not be farther from the truth. And something that distant from the truth comes from a place that cannot be distinguished from hell. The Christian church is there to remind people, young men included, and perhaps even first and foremost, that they have a woman to find, a garden to walk in, a family to nurture, an ark to build, a land to conquer, a ladder to heaven to build, and the utter terrible catastrophe of life to face stalwartly in truth, devoted to love, and without fear. Invite the young men back. Say, literally, to those young men, you are welcome here. If no one else wants what you have to offer, we do. We want to call you to the highest purpose of your life. We want your time and energy and effort and your will and your goodwill. We want to work with you to make things better, to produce life more abundant for you and for your wife and children and for your community and your country and the world. And we have our problems in the Christian church. We are moribund and sometimes, far too often, corrupt, and sometimes deeply so. We are outdated, as are all institutions with their roots in the dead, but still often wise past. So join us. We'll help fix you up, and you can help fix us up. And together, we'll aim up. And here's a message to those young men skeptical about such things. What else do you have? You can abandon the churches in your cynicism and disbelief. You can say to yourself, narcissistically and solipsistically, the church does not express what I believe properly. Who cares what you believe? Why is this about you? Do you even want it to be about you? What if it was about others? What if it was about your duty to the past and to the broader community that surrounds you in the present? What if it was incumbent upon you and vital to your health and willingness even to live, to rescue your dead father from the belly of the beast, where he has always resided, and to restore him to life? Once again, to the churches, Protestant, you're the worst at the moment. Catholic, Orthodox. Invite young men. Put up a billboard. Say, young men are welcome here. Print some flyers and put them in a box by the billboard. Signal the existence of those flyers with an arrow with the words, more information about attending here. Tell those who have never been in a church exactly what to do, how to dress, when to show up, who to contact, and most importantly, what they can do. Ask more, not less, of those you are inviting. Ask more of them than anyone ever has. Remind them who they are in the deepest sense and help them become that. Your churches, for God's sake. Quit fighting for social justice. Quit saving the bloody planet. Attend to some souls. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your holy duty. Do it now, before it's too late. The hour is nigh.
Pretty powerful stuff there from Mr. Peterson. Ran across that, saved that video actually here a while back. Well, it was a few weeks back. And forgot about it, and I was going through my saved videos because I saved another one. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember saving this one. Watched it while I was eating my lunch, and I was like, whoa. That's a pretty powerful message. Because wokeness is invading it's pervasive in everything. It's found its way into churches. It's definitely found its ways into the corporate offices. It's found its ways into the halls of government. It's like a cancer. Wokeness is like a cancer, and it's found its way into a lot of things. But I really like that message there, and I just wanted to share it with you real quick. But anyway, folks, this is almost 2 hours this week. Thanks to you. Let me try that again. Thank you to those of you who stuck around for the whole live stream. I appreciate all the comments, the questions for Mrs. Dreher, all of you that stuck around the whole time. Ganai, Voodoo Queen, Casey Rich was in here. Gary Ride was in here. Mad Mom Anon was in here. And I know BH was in here. I know we had some other viewers. Maybe they weren't commenting or adding any questions, but that's fine. I appreciate all of you who tuned in tonight, all of you who watched. Again, to all of those who download, listen online, listen via radio. Appreciate each and every one of you. Help me spread the message of freedom and liberty. Make sure you find me on Facebook. Follow me there. Follow me on YouTube. Download literally any podcasting app you'll find me on. Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, even Podkicker. See, even some of the ones you've never heard of. I'm on pretty much every podcasting app. So help me spread the word of message and the message of freedom and liberty here in the state of Missouri. Let's take the 10th Amendment. Let's use it for good. Let's use it to castrate the government, the feds, and, do our duty as sovereign citizens of the state of Missouri. Yeah, Voodoo Queen, you're right. That was a great interview. She's a hoot. I really enjoyed talking with Catherine, and I can't wait to meet her face to face. So yes, folks, August 6th. Let me pull up all the details here. I know Robert's got it posted, but let me also. I'm pretty sure I shared it to my Facebook page. Let me see if it ever pulls up here, because sometimes it's a little slow, just like me. A little slow on the uptake, Yosef. So, let's see. Okay, it is going to be August 6th. All right, come on. Expand the Romo here. It's going to be, it starts at 6, concludes around 9 o'clock. Free beer and burger offered throughout the night. The night will also be catered by Nevada Restaurant Brickwall Bistro. Wagyu Burger, for that matter. Speakers for tonight, Robert Smith, Tom Martz, Patrick Holland, myself, and Jesse Rude. But that's August 6th at the Eagles Lodge in Nevada, Missouri. And then you heard what Catherine said about the Lincoln Fairground building. In Troy, Missouri, August 28th from 2 to 4 p.m. Tom Martz, myself, and maybe some other speakers will be there. I will tell you that at both events, I will be speaking on my journey, how I started out politically, and the place I'm at now. And I know I've said this many times, but my whole journey started with a chance meeting of a couple here in Owensville, and they turned me right round with one movie, with one documentary, sent me on a whirlwind adventure of learning and educating myself, and they taught me a lot. They've continued to help me out. They're first and foremost on my journey to what is now the loving of liberty, to gaining more liberty and freedom. They set me on this path. And that's what I'm going to discuss at both meetings. And then I'm going to tie into what I do now and the things I see from groups like the Missouri Freedom Initiative and how important it is that local elections, whether it's school board, your city elections, your county elections, your state elections, why they're so vitally important and why we need to search and be cognizant of all the freedom-loving candidates out there, give them lots of love, help spread the message for them, and help them get elected. And maybe, just maybe, we can make Missouri the freest state in the union. But anyway, so that's coming up next month. Again, I'm about as nervous as a dog crapping tacks, or how do you say it? Nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I actually have to write my outline, kind of write a timeline of events and things that I think up and think about as my journey's progressed in this in these last 15 years. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be speaking out about at both events. It's something I'm an expert on because it's my life, and I don't have to like read 10 books and like, oh, this sounds good. I'm just going to go out there and speak about my journey. And I know that that's something that I'll have in common with a lot of folks because not everybody starts out being freedom lovers. They were Republicans or Democrats at one time, and they thought, man, neither one of these parties is doing the right thing because these people took time to do the research. They sat down and thought about things, how things should be, how they thought they were, and how they thought and how they perceived things. They were wrong in their perceptions. They figured that out, and now they made the quest to join the freedom movement. So I think it's something that when at these events, it's a good message, and it's a message that will, a lot of people can identify with. So anyway, again, thanks so much for joining me for this edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. We'll be back next week. I might have a guest. I might not. I got to work on a little bit of things here, see if I can find somebody new and interesting. It won't be a candidate, more than likely, because primary's coming up Tuesday, so I won't be doing any candidate interviews for a little while. Maybe closer to election time, I'll bring some of these folks back in. Yeah, hard to say what we're going to cover this Friday, but hope to see you all there again. Yeah, and like Voodoo Queen said, hit the thumbs up on your way out. Appreciate all of you who join me tonight and who listen and download. Thank you all once again. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. All right, guys. As usual, you were awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah. Good night to you all. Again, appreciate you guys hanging out through the whole thing. Again, I know I got a little fired up earlier on this whole Dustin Hill, Brandon Wilkinson thing. It really fucking pissed me off. I was really, really hot today. And I told Patrick, I was like, listen, I'm going to speak my mind tonight. He and I talked on my way home from work. He said, he just got back from Minnesota. He had work to do. Totally understand. He couldn't join the live stream tonight. But, you know, I just told him I'm going to be a little, you know, speaking my mind at the end. I wanted to get through the interview with Catherine first. And I didn't want to include her in any of that because that had nothing to do with her. But I was going to speak my mind on this whole thing because I can't say that I felt betrayed because, you know, it wasn't like, oh, me and Dustin were best buddies or anything. But I was pissed off. I was real pissed off. So, anyway, thanks, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully, I haven't checked the weather. I hope it's not going to be hot as Hades outside this weekend. I'm going to go into work tomorrow because I'm a glutton for punishment. I just can't help but go in and work overtime because I'm a greedy capitalist. Oh, 79 tomorrow, 84 on Sunday. And then hot as Hades next week, into the workday. Yay. All right, guys. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Thanks for helping me spread the message. And thanks for joining me every week. It's a great feeling. I am honored that you all, especially the ones that are associated with Patrick. You know, Patrick is a guy, he's got that radio voice. Patrick's got a good command of the English language, and Patrick just speaks so well. It just kind of draws you in. I admire Patrick and his ability to, when he does a live stream, just he gets into the meat of things, thinks of things, and in a way that I don't. And a lot of the guys, a lot of the folks that join in every week and are commenting in YouTube, you guys are fantastic. You guys look at things from all these angles that I don't sometimes, and it's really awesome to be a part of. So again, thanks to all you folks out there who joined me this evening. Starting to get a case of the yawns here, but anyway, appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Hopefully, see you Tuesday night for the as the polls close at 7:00. I believe Patrick told me today, 7:00 on Tuesday. Be a part of the live stream. Hopefully, we see our friends like Casey Pemberton and some of the others win their primary. Because, you know, Casey wins. He's a shoo-in. He should be because there's no Democrats really running in his area. He should have a pretty easy time getting in to the House of Representatives if he wins. So we want to see friends like Casey and some of the others get in, win their primary, and be well on their way to truly, you know, representing the people and upholding the principles of freedom and liberty. So take care, everybody.